morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm really thrilled and honored to have as my repeat guest Michael Callahan, who's the general counsel of Rivian. Michael, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Richard. Great to see you. Thanks for having me back. Fun to be a two-timer.
I know, one of the rare two-timers. Well, let's see. I want to talk to you today about a topic I'm going to guess you don't get asked a lot about, and that is your rowing career in college. Tell me, it's such a unique sport. I have interviewed Daniel James Brown, who's on my program, who obviously wrote The Boys in the Boat. Now it's a movie. But tell me, how did you even get into that sport?
Sure. Yeah. So it was Daniel James Brown's a great writer. The book is great. The movie's great. I'm glad you had him as a guest. I stumbled into rowing by accident. So I showed up at college at Georgetown with a plan to walk on to the tennis team, and that didn't pan out. And there was a guy on my freshman floor, a couple doors down, who had been recruited to row. And he said, we're always looking for walk-ons, guys who've done other sports. I had run cross country in high school and a bunch of other stuff. And I said, I'm going to give it a shot. So I went down to Boathouse freshman year and fell in love with the sport. And that continued through my college years. And then I stayed to coach the freshman lightweights at Georgetown. I was a lightweight rower, which is boat average of 155 and max of 160 in the boat. So much smaller rowers than like Boys in the Boat, like the open weight class. And fell in love with it. And it became the first part of my working career was coaching for the first couple of years out of college.
That is amazing. Now, what is it about rowing? I mean, it seems so tedious. It seems so repetitious. What is it about it that is enjoyable? I mean, please share that
Yeah.
enlightenment with me.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'd run cross country in high school, which I grew up in Northwest Connecticut, and we had some beautiful places to run out in the woods and in a small town where I grew up and in the surrounding towns. But that too is sort of repetition, right? And finding a mindset, at least for me, where the repeating of the motion, trying to find excellence in it, the pulling while you're with the team, 8 in the boat plus a coxswain, it's all your individual strength also of like maintaining the rhythm of the boat and continually having to dig deeper and deeper because you can't stop at any point, right? You're rowing as a team. And what appealed to me, I think, was a couple things. First, it's very, very difficult to do it well. And a boat, an 8-man shell, is consistently looking for what rowers talk about, which is swing, which is the boat is set up well in the water, the oars are in and out at the same time, and it's maximum efficiency, getting all 9 people in the boat with the coxswain to do everything together. And they cover that in the movie a little bit, where different combinations of rowers work differently and body types and height and size and strength. And what I enjoyed about it was like that every morning showing up at 5:30 at the boathouse. We rowed at sunrise in Washington, D.C. along the monuments. It was like unbelievable scenery. But that quest for excellence every single morning of like, you find moments of it where the boat, you can just feel it and everyone's together. And that plus the hard physical work, like I enjoy the grind of like waking up like that early. And then by the time I hit class at 8, I've done like an amazing workout. Like the fitness level was phenomenal and so much fun. The third part is the camaraderie among your fellow oarsmen. Very few college students are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go do anything, let alone go row for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So the men and women that I spent time with in the boathouse, they're still my closest friends. I ski with these guys every year as a group. We get together. I'm taking a golf trip with some other guys from the crew. And that's that bond of like, you experienced this together. You traveled on the weekends to race other schools and you committed yourself to each other every day in that boat is something that it's just really hard to break that bond. So those are the things that kind of shaped why it was important to me. And the work ethic, I think it really helped me. Like professionally, I still get up early. I still do a lot early in the morning. That's a good time I've found career-wise. It's quiet. The emails aren't coming in. You're not scheduled in meetings. You can get a lot of stuff done in those first 5 a.m. time frame on in the morning. So it's become a part of my life ever since I was 18, and it's been great.
Now, isn't it pretty hard to walk on and get on that team? Because Georgetown has a good rowing team. I mean,
I
isn't that
think now, I mean, as all things, I think now it's probably pretty hard. My sense is that most of the rowers are recruited, but there's some walk-ons. In the
Mm,
80s, when I was doing it, there were a fair number of recruits, but also a fair number of walk-ons. And so,
I see.
like everything, I mean, I have college-age kids, internships, club sports in college, everything is so much more competitive. I think things have changed. I think walk-ons, it's still a thing, but it's maybe less of a thing than it was back then.
Now, did you feel like you missed out on certain things in college? Because if you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm guessing you're not partying up late at night, drinking at frat parties at 3 in the morning. I mean, what
Yeah,
about
well, the occasional
that?
Sat, we didn't have practice Sundays, and so Saturday nights you had your fun. I think there were things I missed out on. Study abroad is something that as my kids are in college and they're experiencing that,
Mm,
that's something that I didn't do. Although others on the team did, but I chose not to, which is something I felt I missed out on. But I don't, in general, my friends group started to migrate towards, and I lived with other rowers and
mm,
guys who didn't row too. Um, but I didn't feel like I missed out on that much in hindsight. Like I feel what I gained in terms of like knowing who I am as a person, the friendships that I gained, knowing that I could push myself to learn a new sport and physically push myself to do it and be successful at it. That I think has probably done more for me than anything else could have done. But for sure, you miss out on extracurriculars. You
yeah,
really like the life of a student athlete. I think you really can't do that much else. And so,
yeah, right.
clubs and other things. And my academic record was fine, not stellar, so I probably missed out on some of that too. But there's there are definitely choices that you make, and but I wouldn't do it differently looking back.
Now, after rowing for I guess 4 years in college, what made you decide you wanted to coach that team? I mean, that just seems real. What made you decide you want to do that,
Yeah.
and what was
So
that?
I didn't row my sophomore year. So I
Mm,
rowed freshman, then junior, senior, and I was looking at what I was going to do when I graduated, and the head coach of the program asked if I would think about staying on as a freshman
mm,
coach. And the prior year, the same thing had happened. They asked a guy to stay on, and there was another guy who had coached the year before who I rowed with, who was a good friend. He's in the Bay Area now. He runs a startup. He was going to do it with me, and so, but he was in medical school, so his time was less. So I would be the head guy, and he would be the backup. And I thought, I didn't have anything else lined up at the time. I ended up also landing a job as a legal assistant at Skadden Washington office because the rowing paid a little, not enough to live on it. So I had to
yeah,
go
yeah,
find
yeah.
another job. Um, but it was such a big part of my identity, and I felt like if I could keep it in my life and then find something else on top of it. And that made for some long days with rowing and then, going to do a corporate legal assistant gig. But it was an exciting opportunity. And then the next year, another senior stayed on and I became the backup for that next year. So we kind of had these like two for guys each year as they did it.
Mm, mm.
Now I think though it's a professional coaching core, with endowed funding, and it's a very different thing than it was
I
35 years
see.
ago. So
How did you compare coaching with rowing? I mean, was it not as fun or more fun? What did you think?
yeah, it's interesting. As I've thought about what I've enjoyed about my career as an in-house GC,
Yeah.
the thing that I get the most excitement about is building the team,
Uh-huh.
watching the team help the business teams be successful in achieving their goals. And then the most fun thing is when I see members of my team go off to be general counsels, partners at law firms, business leaders of their own. And so that element of like freshman year, a bunch of folks show up at the boathouse and you'd start with like 35 or 40. And then by the time a few months in, it's winnowed down to like the core 18 who really want to do it.
Yeah.
And then watching some of those guys really find their pace as a student athlete, as a rower, as a contributing member of the campus community, and then go off into their lives. Like there's a guy I coached as a freshman who's a general counsel of one of the companies here in the Valley, and we've maintained a friendship over the last 30 plus years. And
Mm,
it's just really fun to see, like, to help develop talent, help people realize their goals. And it's really something that I've found to love in my professional career too, like this being part of a team, finding the right roles for people, helping careers advance. And sometimes that means people want to leave company, right? Sometimes they choose to do something else, but then in that helping them find the next new fun opportunity that realizes their personal and professional goals. So it was kind of a nice analog for me of what I found that I like. And, I taught at Stanford for 5 years before Rivian. I like that there too, like working with the law students, helping them understand career path, what the opportunities look like, what different areas of law from my perspective could bring in terms of interest and reward. And so it's sort of been a consistent thing from those days.
Now, when you read the book, The Boys in the Boat, or saw the movie, it must have had like a special impact to you. I mean, what really kind of leapt off the page or the screen for you about that movie?
Yeah, it really did. The book is phenomenal, and the movie's great too. It's hard in 2+ hours to do justice to the stories of some of these young men and what they accomplished. But yeah, I was excited because like you mentioned, rowing is sort of an obscure sport. Used to be mostly East Coast private school stuff. Now it's all over the place, which is great with public schools, and it's very global. But I thought it was an opportunity for others to kind of get a sense of what is this all about? Like, why are people drawn to it? What makes it exciting? What makes it drive people to want to do it? And the unique community of people I've met through the rowing community, that leapt off the page for me. That excitement for others to get a sense of what it's like. And the second, I think, is comes back to the way the book describes the relationship between the team members and the coach, and the intense physical aspects, but also the intense mental aspects of the sport, and the pressure and the desire to achieve, and how it's all tied. You're tied together. You can't achieve it unless you find a way to work it out together. And that seeing that really resonated with me, as I lived with other guys on the team, and now I see them in their professional lives and personal lives, and it's great to have those connections. So I think those are the things that really resonated with me.
Tell me the story about the boat that's behind you. Any significance to that?
Yeah, so that boat is a painting of a boat that used to be in Nantucket Harbor. And the significance of it is my mother was a watercolor painter. She took a photo of that boat to bring home after a family trip we took in September one year, and she was going to paint it. Tragically, she passed away 6 weeks later and never got a chance to paint the boat. So I found a painting from a Nantucket-based artist of the boat and have it here in my home office. So
Of that
it's nice
exact
to
same
remember.
of that exact same boat.
Same boat, yep.
Oh, that is so
So
funny.
it's fun for me to, gives me a little chance to think about her every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little about your recent job. I also want to talk about that. I interviewed you when you were at the GC of LinkedIn,
Yep.
phenomenal career and all that. And then, of course, you went on to Stanford and do the Rock Center. And I thought, okay, this is Mike's retirement job. It's perfect ending. We talked about LinkedIn. And then I see you take this GC job at Rivian, so obviously the Rock Center was not your retirement job. Tell me what happened. How did this present itself? Were you itching to get back to being a GC? Tell me.
Yeah, sure. No, I think you weren't alone in that, because when I went to talk to some folks at Rivian, that was their first question. I was like, we kind of thought you were done with this stuff. Um, so working at Stanford and being, teaching on the faculty and running the Rock Center was a phenomenal experience. 5 years, loved the team,
Sure.
everything about it. What I started to feel like was, I'm 56, and so a year ago, 55 is when I joined Rivian, that I really was thinking I'd like to do one more operating gig. I'd like to do it obviously in the tech field, but not in the same internet software, SaaS, social media, where I'd spent, the prior 20 years as a general counsel. And I knew some people at Rivian, and they reached out because they had an opportunity that was opening up. And we talked a little bit, and then we didn't, and then we talked some more, and gradually I got to read more about the industry, and there were kind of three things that drove me to jump on the opportunity. And I'm really been there just over a year, delighted that I did so. The first was thinking about the mission of the company and the products that we build. And there's a lot of accolades for the products, and people really love them, and they are a phenomenal product. And we just announced 2 new products last week, the R2 and the R3, which are going to be exciting, more accessible vehicles. But the focus on excellence in technology and safety and customer experience, but also on the climate side of helping drive a new future in electrification and in sustainable mobility. And I felt like, given the world that we're all experiencing, and whether it's what you think about climate change is irrelevant, the facts are that we're moving towards a world where electrification is going to be a bigger part of transportation, and no one company is going to change the world. Tesla's done an amazing job with the scale that they've reached, and other, there's so many wonderful vehicles on the market from other providers. But Rivian was doing something special in this kind of adventure space, and I get up to Tahoe a lot. I really enjoy the outdoors, as we were just talking about, and rowing and boats. Um, and so I felt like this was a place where it's a mission-oriented company, which I really enjoyed about a bit being at LinkedIn and Yahoo, but also doing something that has a broader purpose as we think about sustainability. So that was one big reason. The second was the team. So I inherited a team across all the traditional functions that a chief legal officer, general counsel has. They're tremendous. I've been able to add some terrific talent to the team over the year. So the legal and public policy and regulatory team is phenomenal, and the expertise that they have and the passion for the mission and what we're doing. Also the executive team. I spent a lot of time with the board and with other members of the executive team, and our founder, RJ Scaringe, who has just unrelenting passion for excellence and the mission of the company. And for those of you who are interested, you can watch the recording of our launch of the new vehicles, and you can just feel the optimism that he brings to what he does every day, because starting a car company in the pandemic is not an easy thing to do, and it's proven to be about that difficult, I think. But he has never lost that. And so I felt like, one of the things I've enjoyed about my career is partnering with entrepreneurs and business people and using my skill set, which isn't in entrepreneurship, to help them realize their potential. Like, what can I bring and the team bring to the table that says we realize these goals faster, we can clear these regulatory hurdles a little quicker. And I felt like this is a guy that I really would like to see succeed and succeed with him. And so that was a big driver. And then the third was personal, which was the reason I left LinkedIn was because I wanted to go learn something new and try the academic side. And the reason I came to this space was I knew nothing about working in automotive or manufacturing, but fascination with supply chain, global kind of geopolitics, and in minerals and imports, export, all the things that we're dealing with, challenges in supply chain, hardcore manufacturing, being a part of that part of the economy in the United States as opposed to internet software. And so for me, it's been an unbelievable learning experience. I've got this giant file of stuff I drag around to read on flights and stuff, just to kind of educate myself about the industry, and building a whole new set of experiences and knowledge from a whole different kind of business. So those are kind of the three things that drove me to jump on the opportunity.
That's amazing. Well, given how long it took us to schedule this, I think it was over a year. Is it fair to say that this has been the most intense of the jobs you've ever had? I mean, obviously, it's hard to imagine, like, being at Yahoo at the time you were at, or LinkedIn. I mean, those must have been incredible rocket ships, literally. But is that a fair statement about your job?
I apologize. I didn't realize it is a year, though. You're right. It took
It took about a year to schedule this.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for your patience for having me on. It's definitely intense. In terms of more or less, I think, you've had a long career too. Like, there are peaks and valleys in every business cycle. And I think, in our space right now, we are for sure experiencing an intense period of competition, of sort of external media attention on, is there an EV winter? Is EV demand shrinking? You can read an equal number of articles about Rivian that express excitement about the product portfolio, and then an equal number that say this company's burn rate is so high, will it make it to next, to profitability? And so there's definitely an element of our world right now, which is challenging, but it's not a challenge that I feel is daunting or insurmountable in any way. Like, I have a lot of conversations, both at my time at Stanford and with others in the space, about how people decide what kind of opportunities they go with, and certain personalities and people gravitate towards things that are more steady growth, stable, predictable, and for better or for worse, since I joined Yahoo in '99, I've kind of gravitated towards the companies that tend to do a lot of this, right? Like, you got a great product and you're going to build, and then you hit, I went through the dot-com bust, which changed Yahoo and many other companies' profile, and then I went through the financial crisis when I was at Yahoo and all the chaos that brought, and then did a startup, and then LinkedIn, where we built the company and then eventually sold it, and they've done amazing things since. So these are markets that I'm excited every day by waking up to, a set of challenges that I'm aware of, but also a set of challenges that come in over the night, and you say, we got to kind of prioritize and how we're going to work through these. But it's definitely an intense experience, maybe a little more so here, only because in the first year I got to learn a whole new business, right? And a whole new
Yeah,
set of
yeah,
issues and policy
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
But I don't do it by myself. I have an unbelievable team of experts across so many different disciplines that I can rely on, and our outside partners as well. And so it's been a lot of fun and everything that I would have hoped for.
Now, after taking the hiatus and doing that teaching, and you said I'm sure that was an incredible job. When you stepped back in the GC role, did it take some time to get adjustment, or was it like riding a bicycle? You just jumped back on and it just felt like you'd left yesterday.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of an adjustment, I think, because the rhythm of a manufacturing business is somewhat different. I mean, we run a very large manufacturing plant in Normal, Illinois, 2.5 hours south of Chicago. We have 8,000 employees that work out of that plant, and I'd never worked in an environment that had sort of so we have a number of folks in Palo Alto, Irvine, and a bunch of other places that work on the technology side, product design. So that kind of business I'm used to, right? Engineers and software and all the rest. But the challenges that come with the manufacturing plan and all the business challenges there, that was probably the biggest adjustment for me, is like understanding what the issues are, how to help the team be successful. I inherited a wonderful team that works with that group on a regular basis. So that rhythm of a manufacturing driven environment and how that business cycle drives us, and the fact we're subject to global supply chain challenges and interest rate challenges and everything in a way that's a little bit different from my old businesses. Personally, yeah, I mean, at Stanford, I had almost complete schedule control, right? So, and no surprise, a public company chief legal officer doesn't have complete schedule control. So, making some adjustments. But even during my time at Stanford, I'm on one public company board. I had a number of advisory relationships with startups. So I was staying in the mix, but it's different when you're the person running it as opposed to being
Yeah,
an
totally.
advisor. So yeah, it was definitely an adjustment, but one that I was ready for and excited for.
Well, obviously, I mean, I'm sure it's been a ton of hard work since you got there, but it also looks like you're kind of having fun. I mean, I mean, you seem to be smiling a lot. You don't,
Yeah,
you don't look like someone who's sleep deprived or anything. So, are you having fun in this new
yeah,
experience?
very much so. I mean, I think, I consider myself really fortunate to have had this long career in the Valley at some really amazing companies, mostly because I've gotten to work with amazing people, and yet, like you and I met along the way here, right? And then our relationships developed over time. And that's the thing that, as I look at, sort of being, in my mid 50s and taking on a new challenge like this over the last year, there are obviously days like everyone has where it's intense and there's a lot going on. But if I think about the arc of the last 30 plus years I've had as a lawyer, I really couldn't be more fortunate to just
Yeah.
had some amazing opportunities in terms of business challenges, intellectual challenges, learning experiences, working with phenomenal entrepreneurs and business people who are trying to do something different to make the world a better place every day. Like that is a true gift and not something that I take for granted at all.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, I know it's way too early to ask you this question, but I might not have you as a guest for another 5 years. So let me ask you, what else is on the list of Michael Callahan? Because you have literally done, I mean, you were at a big law firm, you've done startups, you were hyper growth companies, you've been a public company, you sold companies, you've already done the academic thing, I mean, is there anything else that's in the back of your mind that you think you might still want to do? I mean, writing a book maybe? Is there, you
Yeah, I
know,
don't know. There's a
what?
couple things. So we talked about coaching. Like I I'm a big sports junkie, and so maybe I'd see myself back to coaching again in some capacity. That's something I've thought about. But probably the other thing I've thought about for my career is in public service. That's the one
Mm,
part of my career I
mm.
have not done. Now, lawyers can do a lot of different things. I haven't done that yet. So if there was a next chapter years and years from now, it may be something in nonprofit, something in public service, something that more directly every day contributes back to causes and opportunities and stuff that I'm excited about. So we'll see. But no, current plan is we've got amazing vehicles on the road and a lot more work to do to scale and help our company be more successful and efficient. So I'm focused on that. But if there was one thing, I mean, both my parents, my father's a retired FBI agent. My mother was a public school guidance counselor. They spent their careers in public service, and that's something that is sort of in my DNA, and I haven't done it yet. So maybe that.
Are you driving a Rivian?
I am. I have an R1T truck, my ski rack on it. It's an amazing vehicle. I can't endorse it enough.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, Michael, I really appreciate your taking the time. It was a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed the rowing part, and I loved hearing about your new job at Rivian. I would love to invite you to be a 3-time guest if you decide to do something else or when you decide to do something else. But thanks so much for sharing the story with me.
Richard, thanks. What you've built with the podcast on Hsu Untied is just, it's an amazing thing, and fun to be one of the early guests and then to see the arc of all the great guests you've had. And it's a real honor to be here. And thanks for taking the time to interview me.
I really appreciate it. This is Richard Hsu and Mike Callahan. Thanks.